Welcome back to Andersen Acres. I'm here with the baby ducks. They're hiding from me. Apparently they don't like me, which is kind of annoying. But they're here and they are a couple weeks old now. And you will notice how big they are. That's one of the reasons I put off filming this video until they were bigger, because I wanted to show you how quickly they grow. Okay, they're 2.5 weeks old. They are huge. So if you're used to chickens, you will be shocked at how fast ducks grow. Okay? You will be shocked, and they don't really like me, but that's okay. But you will be shocked at how quickly they grow and how big they get and how fast. Sorry, did I freak you out? You need help? Do you need help standing up? There you go. But they get really big really fast. So I wanted to wait and to film this video until they were nice and big so you can see how quickly they get big. So it's really important to be aware that your ducks are going to grow fast. So today we're going to talk about brooding your ducks. And brooding your ducks doesn't take as long as brooding your chickens and turkeys because, like I said, they grow fast. By the next video, these guys are going to be out of here and outside, and you'll see them outside by the next time you see these guys. Actually, by the time you're watching this video, they're probably already outside because I have these videos on a delay. So you've probably seen them outside already. They're huge. They're 2.5 weeks old, and they're huge. So, brooding ducks, when you put them in, they're not this big, obviously. They're tiny little guys. And why don't you guys like me? You guys like Tristan. Whatever. But they're obviously much smaller when you put them in. They're 2 weeks younger. So you put them in your brooder and they need a couple of things. The first thing they absolutely need is heat. Now we use a heat plate. You'll notice my heat plate is fairly low. That's because that's the size they fit under when they first came here. Okay, so when they first came out, they fit under this. All right? So good for them, they fit under that. Fantastic. However, they don't fit under there now. They don't need it now. Okay? They definitely do not need it now. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. No big deal. They don't need it because they outgrew it, basically. They don't need heat as long as your chickens. So generally I tell people with your chickens and your turkeys, you're going to be brooding them for like 6 weeks. Ducks don't need it that long. So these guys, by the time they're 3 weeks old, they're going to be outside because the temperatures are decent. Now, obviously, if the temperatures are not decent, then you're going to have a bit of a problem. Okay? And you will have to make accommodations and keep them warm. But in general, these guys are perfectly warm enough. They are old enough to not need a heat plate, and that's fantastic because they literally do not need a heat plate. Okay, so knowing that, you make sure you have a heat plate. Some people use a heat lamp. I do not like heat lamps just because they are an increased risk of fire. But you put a heat plate at the height that they need when they're itty bitty babies. Okay? When they're itty bitty babies, you adjust that heat plate to that height. I don't raise it. With the other birds, I raise it. So with our silkies and our quail, yeah, I raise it. With these guys, I do not. Okay? So because I do not raise it, they stop using it anyway, and they don't really need it. So they need heat when they're babies. Okay? When they're teeny weeny, they do need heat. You can't get away with no heat for ducks. But you don't need it very long, okay? You don't need it nearly as long as your temperatures are decent. If your temperatures are too cold, then you are going to need, to provide some kind of warmth for your babies. That one, by the way, with the yellow beak is a call duck mix. That's how you can tell them apart. But they do need a little bit of heat when they're babies, just so they don't freeze to death, because you know that's going to happen. And you also need some way to keep them contained. So you need a brooder. Our brooder's pretty dusty. It's been used all season. We will spray it off in a few weeks when we are done brooding babies, but it is a little bit dusty because we've been using it all season. So you need something to contain them. I like these. These are small animal playpens. I will try to remember to provide a link in the video description for this type of small animal playpen. They are fantastic. They have a waterproof bottom, so when your ducks do spill water, and they will, you are able to accommodate the spilled water and it doesn't get all over your floor, because that's gross. So I like that. And ducks are messy anyway. Their poops are really wet. So it's nice to have the waterproof bottom. And these are really easy to clean. Take them outside. You dump the sand out. Dump the, there's always going to be some poop mixed in with the sand. So you take them outside. You dump them. You're fine. So I will provide a link to that. So you have your container. You have your heat source. They need food and water. I just feed them an all flock. And for a feeder, I use just a standard poultry feeder. Easy, no problem. Little babies can eat from it easily. But you'll notice I don't have a poultry drinker in here. Again, ducks are a little bit different. Okay, ducks are a little bit different than your standard turkeys and your turkeys and chickens and quail and stuff, in that they need to be able to submerge their beak. They need to be able to basically rinse out their noses with water. So because of that, I provide a dish where they can kind of get their beaks in there. But a word of warning with baby ducks, when they're very, very babies, they have a tendency to just drink too much water and that can kill them. So fill up a small dish like this where they can dunk their faces in, and fill it up maybe 4 times a day, but use a small dish and don't provide them with constant water, because if you provide them with constant water, you might come out and find your ducks are dead for no good reason. So do make sure that they have water, but if you provide them too much water in about that first 2 weeks of life, they could really cause themselves a problem. Once they're this age, so these guys are 2.5, almost 3 weeks old. Once they're that age, they're much, much better. Do not provide your baby ducks somewhere to swim, okay? Because getting a little wet is okay. Getting very wet is not. So they don't have the feathers necessary to repel water yet. And because I'm brooding them, they're not being raised by a mom. They don't have a mom who's producing those water repellent oils. So they shouldn't go swimming a whole bunch of times when they're this size. Okay? They should not do that. So if they get a little bit wet, it's not a big deal. They have that dish of water, a little bit wet, not a big deal. Very wet is a big deal. So just make sure you don't provide them like a swimming pool or anything like that. If you do want your ducks to go swimming at this age, make sure you dry them off thoroughly. Because ducks, just like all other babies, can get chilled. They're not quite ready to just wander in and out of the water at will yet. They need to wait until they have those feathers that we talked about a minute ago. The feathers that repel water and the ability to keep themselves dry. So don't let them have unlimited access to a pond. And if they do get wet, make sure you dry them off. Use a blow dryer. Make sure to dry right to the skin. That way your babies do not end up with any kind of hypothermia or anything like that. Now they're all deciding food and water is the thing. Yeah, you guys are nice. Look how cute they are. Anyway, this will be the last time they appear on video in here, either on the weekly updates or on my weekly videos about birds, because they are too big. They're going outside rather shortly, probably later today, tomorrow, I don't know, but pretty soon. So by the next time they're caught on film, they will not be in this little brooder. All right? But that is basically how you brood ducks. The one thing I did forget to mention is what substrate this is. I use a coarse sand. I like a coarse sand. I find it's good on their feet. I find they're able to move around on it, get some traction, but it's not as messy or stinky as something like shavings. So your basics are an enclosure, some heat, some food and water, and some substrate. And make sure you handle your ducks frequently because they are social creatures. They do like to bond to somebody, and that somebody's probably going to be you because they don't have a mama or you wouldn't be brooding them. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.